Let's see. What up? Oh, my mic is muted. Let me go to comments. I'm streaming from 2 different platforms and 2 different setups. So. Let's see. What up, Gary and Tiff? Mom, mic check. Let's see if I can pull up. Swipe left. Dun, 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 dun. All right. So you can tell I don't go live often, if ever, especially not in a format like this. So bear with me, and then we'll get started. Ebony, if you are on, if you could jump on to Instagram and tell me what it looks like from, then I can get started. It looks like it is. Gary and Tiff, is it a black screen that y'all seeing only? Oh, it looks good? Okay, cool. Never mind. I guess it's a black screen when I go to Instagram, so I'm just going to stay on my streaming platform. Well, thank you for tuning in, whether you're tuning in live or you're watching this later. Honestly, this is something that's probably been on my heart for, I don't know, for quite some time now. And based on taking some time to think about it and everything, this is the best format for me to get it done. For most of you who know me, I've been in the health and fitness industry for about 15 years now. And I never really got hold of the content creation aspect of it. Not a huge fan of it, but you know, I do what I can. So honestly, I'm doing this live stream to record it and clip it up for future content posting and everything. So whatever questions, concerns you all might have concerning health and fitness is kind of what we're gonna dive into. I have a slight agenda, but I like to freestyle as well. So we will see how that goes. So. Okay. So, cool. All right, so I'm gonna open up with a quick scripture and a quick prayer, and then we're gonna dive right in. So, in discussion with my cousin, who's like a brother to me, we this scripture I felt was appropriate for the whole purpose of me doing this. So it comes from 3 John chapter 1 verse 2, and it states, "Dear friend, I pray that you are prospering in every way and are in good health, just as your whole life is going well." And so one of the things that has always been on my heart as a believer is too many of us neglect our health, our physical health, in the church and in outside of the church. So, and I understand from my experience with being in the industry for so long, there's a lot of information out there of what to do and not to do. And it gets confusing, it gets overwhelming. But at the same time, we tend to not take the appropriate measures to maintain a healthy lifestyle, which ends up hurting us in the long run. So yeah, let's pray and get into it. Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. Lord, I ask, Lord, that your grace, your anointing, and your presence, Lord, be with me and everyone who watches this video, Lord Father, and that education is gained throughout this information that's shared, Lord Father, and that you just use me, Lord Father, with the skills and ability that you have blessed me with to bless others, Lord Father. So I thank you for this opportunity, Lord. I thank you for your grace and your mercy, and I give you all the glory and honor in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so quick intro on who I am. Sorry. Oh, it is a black screen, so I'm back now. Okay, so it's a black screen again. My bad. Instagram. I'm gonna stay on this way and see what happens. So yeah, like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I have 2 masters, one in coaching and one in exercise science, and throughout the years, I think the biggest issue. Let's see. So is it a black screen when I leave? All right, so I can't see your post from Instagram unless I jump to it. So I'm gonna stay on my streaming platform. My bad. But one of the biggest issues I've always noticed over the years is the lack of proper information when it comes down to health and fitness. So, and the reason for that lack is the lack of awareness. So as far as many people go when it comes down to trying to get started to embark on a health and wellness journey, to lose weight or whatever the case may be, oftentimes they start that process without gaining the right information about themselves and their current lifestyle and what they need to adjust and adapt. So for instance, the perfect example would be most people, the first thing they do when they want to lose weight is they start eating less. And in general, that always seems like a smart idea. But in the grand scheme, when we look at the total amount of calories a person needs to consume and what they're actually consuming, it never actually lines up. Meaning, so most people don't know how many calories they're actually eating. And if they start immediately eating less, they can create what we look at as too big of a deficit. And you would think, okay, if I'm eating even less and I'm creating this huge deficit, I should definitely lose weight. Well, that's what basically sends your body into starvation mode a lot quicker. So the first step, anytime that when it comes down to determining if you're going to modify your calorie intake, is starting off with knowing how many calories you should be consuming from the jump. You can do that by going on a website called tdeecalculator.net. I'm gonna use this whiteboard behind me, try and put everything I talk about up there. Slide it over. But Oh, man, got a glare. I don't know. But tdeecalculator.net. Check my spelling. I don't know. But you want to start there. And that's going to give you a good snapshot based on your height, weight, age, level of activity. I forgot to turn on these other cameras I have. Yeah, so they're going to give you, that's going to give you a good ballpark figure to for your calorie intake of where you should what you should be consuming calorie wise. The reason that is important is because if you should be eating 2,500 calories just to maintain your current weight, and even though you might be having an unhealthy lifestyle, unhealthy diet, you've only been consuming 2,000 calories still, but unhealthy, and you decide to decrease your calories. Well, so now you go from eating 2,000 calories down to eating, 1,500 or 1,800 calories when you should have been at 2,500 anyway. So then we start creating this deficit, right? So the need is up here, and then this is where we started as far as the calories we were already consuming, but then we start to decreasing even more. That gets dangerous from the standpoint of calories aren't necessarily concerned with how many calories you need per day. Okay. It's ultimately concerning how many calories you need per week. Okay. So that 2,500 calories a day is, could equate, don't check my math. I'm just spitballing here, but let's say that means you need 20,000 calories per week. Okay, that's the number that weight management is going to be adjusted from, that 20,000 calories that you need per week. Okay, so if you're burning the demand that you're placing on your body based on your daily activity, going to work, exercise, whatever it is that you're doing throughout the day to burn that 2,500 calories, if that's the demand that you're putting on your body over the course of a week, a total of 20,000 calories, but you're only eating, let's say, 10,000 calories a week, then that your body recognizes that as, okay, hey, I'm operating through 7 days off of 3.5 days worth of resources, worth of energy. And so when you continually do this for an extended period of time, that's where that starvation mode scenario starts to be created, where now your body is spending or utilizing those resources that 10,000 calories and storing it because it's not able to meet the demand that you're placing on your body. So a lot of times you'll see most people will think, a lot of people that are overweight and dealing with different health issues, sometimes we always assume like, okay, they must eat all day, every day. And a lot of times you'll find out they only eat maybe once or twice a day. Most often just once a day. And again, they might eat a lot in that one setting, but again, eating, I don't care how much or how bad your meal is, most often, depending on if you have a high demand of calories based on your level of activity, eating once a day is never going to give you enough calories for you to gain to go overweight. So it's going to be the fact that you're only eating once a day and you're having this high demand that your body is just continuously storing what you are consuming. So I hope that makes sense. If not, yeah, let me know. So, so in regards to that, when it comes down to building awareness, obviously you want to start with knowing how many calories you actually need to be consuming. Okay. And then you want to adjust from there. So if you find out like, hey, okay, I need to be eating 2,500 calories or 2,000 calories or 3,000 calories, and your goal, then you adjust based on your goal. So, hey, 2,500 calories is what you're burning. You want to lose weight? Well, we want to do deductions of in increments of 250 calories, right? So 250 calories deduction per day equates to about a half a pound of weight loss per week, right? A 500 calorie deduction is a pound of weight loss per week. Now you can go up sometimes to 1,000 calorie deficit, but another thing you'll notice when you go to that website, tdeecalculator.net, it's also going to give you what's called your basal metabolic rate, all right? Or your resting metabolic rate, as some people have heard it referred to as. And so that, your resting metabolic rate is the amount of calories you burn if you woke up and you laid in bed for 24 hours straight and all you did was lay in bed and breathe. So how many calories does it take for your body to sustain life, for your organs to function, for you to breathe, for your heart to beat, for your brain to operate, right? That is your resting metabolic rate, the minimum amount of calories it takes for your body to exist. That is also what we refer to as the minimum amount of calories you should be consuming every day regardless, because that's the amount of calories it takes for your body to even exist. Okay. Okay, cool. So that might be, so again, I'm spitballing. I didn't run the numbers, but if someone who has a demand of 2,500 calories a day, including their activity, they might have a resting metabolic rate of, let's say, 1,500 calories. All right. So at minimum, regardless of what they do, they need to be consuming at least 1,500 calories a day. So that way their body can sustain its normal function. When we dip below on a consistent basis, so hey, if your resting metabolic rate is 1,500 calories, but you've been eating 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories, and you've been doing it for an extended period of time, well then now your body doesn't even have enough resource to do its basic functions. The ultimate basic function that our body wants to do is return to what we call homeostasis, which is balance. So that's hormonal balance, that's nutrient balance, that's temperature regulation, all those things. Our bodies want to be in balance. So that's the whole purpose of the existence of your entire system, right? Is to return to balance. So a lot of times when you find out you have like hormonal disruptions and different things, you're suffering from different type of hormonal issues, sometimes it could be related to your calorie intake to your nutrition. It can heavily be related to your nutrition as well when you start looking at the macronutrients as your protein, fats, and your carbs, because fats help regulate your sex hormones. Right, so your estrogen, your testosterone, all those different things. So again, when we have like a hormonal imbalance or nutrient imbalance, a lot of times that can occur because the lack of nutrients or the lack of calories and the lack of the balance of those calories or those macronutrients. So I hope that makes sense. When it comes down to it, in general, they recommend another rule of thumb is what we call it or what I call it, at minimum, regardless of your age, height, weight, level of activity, women, females need to never need to consume less than 1,200 calories. Okay. And then males never need to consume less than 1,800 calories. So if you ever do any research or come across something or think eating 1,000 calories is a good idea as a lady to to lose weight or to maintain weight or something, I wouldn't recommend it. At some point, what research shows, it's going to cause some issue down the line. Same thing for males, right? Shouldn't eat less than 1,800 calories. One of the other things, well, I'll go into that a little bit later, but that's the first thing you want to look at is what is your basal or resting metabolic rate. And from there, you want to make sure you're not eating below that, right? Because again, for some people, if they're not very active, their resting metabolic rate may not be that much. Their total calorie needs or demand may not be that much higher than the resting metabolic rate, right? So your resting metabolic rate might be 1,500 calories, and including activity and all that stuff, you're only demanding burning 2,000 calories. So deducting 500 calories probably wouldn't be ideal in this and in your case, but you can still deduct about 250 calories, depending on what on your lifestyle. So and what your goal is. So that's the first thing you want to do when it comes down to building your awareness. All right, figure out what your calorie needs are. After you figure that out, I would recommend tracking your calories for a few days at minimum 3-5 days. I mean, ideally for at least 10 days. Tracking your calories, you can do that for free on myfitnesspal.com, or it's an app that you can download called MyFitnessPal. And so you can track your calories and see how many calories you're actually averaging on your own. And a lot of times that might surprise a lot of people, right? Because again, if we are, especially if we're living a very busy, rushed lifestyle, and you do eat, you do get fast food a lot and all those different things, you may not realize, how many calories you're actually consuming. Most, I would say, again, in the years that I have been in this industry, I would say about 90% of all my clients that I have dealt with over the years have actually been under eating, right? So meaning they're not eating enough calories. And again, it's mostly because we have that mindset of, all right, well, if I want to lose weight, I need to eat less, right? So I'm gonna eat less. So I'm gonna cut my calories. And they weren't eating, even though they weren't eating healthy to begin with, but they still weren't overeating calorie-wise. They were just overeating or over-consuming macronutrient-wise, right? Eating way too many carbs or way too much fat or not enough protein, whatever the case may be, because of the style of eating or the restaurants and stuff that they were going to. But even though, you might be going out to fast food and all those different things, not every single meal that you're consuming at fast food restaurants are going to be 1,500 calories. Some are, but again, you also have to think about how your lifestyle is. Majority of people skip breakfast. So that's the first thing. A lot of people are not eating breakfast. They might have coffee or something of that nature, something small and simple in the morning. But for the most part, a lot of people don't eat breakfast. Then when it comes around to lunch, depending on your lifestyle and your grind, some people eat something very minimal for lunch. Some people actually go out and eat, unhealthy stuff for lunch as well. It all depends, right? But then when it comes down to dinner, that's where, people make sometimes decent choices. Sometimes it's fast food. And then the issues occur when it's, the late night, right? So dinner time has passed and, now you want the sweets, you want the snacks and all the other different stuff. And that's what, again, most often those items are going to be carbs, right? Ice cream, cookies, stuff like that, chips, that's all going to be carbs and that you don't need. And that's created because you didn't eat breakfast, right? And you were on the go during lunch and all these different things. So when it comes down to looking at what you should be consuming, what you're consuming and all those different things, you'll be surprised by tracking your calories to see, okay, actually, I'm not eating that great quality food wise, but my calories aren't as bad as I thought. I'm only eating, 1,600 calories a day, or I'm only eating 2,200 calories when you should be eating 3,000. So it's important to know. And just to give you guys a little bit of a comparison, I guess, if you're not aware. So my caloric intake to maintain my current weight, current lifestyle, current activity is about 3,400 calories a day. Back when I was in college and an athlete, right, it was over 4,000 calories. So it changes, especially as you age and as your lifestyle changes and all those things, right? It's going to start to decrease and things like that. But you just want to make sure you know how many calories you need to be consuming, and then start tracking to see how many calories you are consuming. And then you're able to make a better informed decision on how to adjust your calorie intake to achieve your goal, right? Because again, it's not always about eating less, right? Sometimes you might have to eat more, but might have to eat more and have to eat at a better quality as you're eating more. So, things to consider. So again, kind of backtracking to explain everything, but you want to basically start off with looking up how many calories you need to build your awareness, right? So tdeecalculator.net. On that site, it's going to ask you for your age, your height, your weight, your level of activity. If you know your body fat percentage, it's going to ask you for that too. I'm going to talk about that next. And then take a look at what your basal metabolic rate is, so that you know what the minimum amount of calories is that you should be consuming, just based on, for your body to sustain life. And then based on your activity, it'll have for light activity, heavy activity, moderate, athletic, right? It's going to tell you how many calories you consume on there. If you scroll down on that website too, it'll have a breakdown on your macronutrients, you know what I mean, as far as like your carbs, fats, and your protein, based on like if you're trying to bulk, if you're trying to cut weight, and then also if you want to do a diet that's high carb, low carb, or moderate carb. It has it all broke down into the grams that you would need per day per macronutrient. So yeah, that's where you would start. Then make the adjustment afterwards. The second thing you want to do outside of the nutrition aspect when it comes to building your awareness is body composition measurements. All right. So body composition measurement is a lot more detailed than just weight. Okay. When we step on the scale, hey, you step on the scale, you see that you're 200 pounds. I'm using myself as an example, right? So 200 pounds, but what does that mean, right? Is it 200 healthy pounds, 200 unhealthy pounds? Like what does that actually mean? So with a body composition measurement, where you can go, where it shows you your body fat percentage, it can break down for you, okay, of this 200 pounds, you have 180 pounds of fat-free mass, which is like your blood, bones, muscles, and organs. And then you have 20 pounds of fat. So that places you at 10% body fat. Cool. All right. So that's more detailed. So then as well, when it comes down to your weight management, you have more details and more information that is appropriate and effective for what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because I know many people have exercised and worked out, and you know what I mean, and they're stepping on the scale and they're like, well, my weight hasn't changed, but my clothes fit different, I feel different, like what's going on? And it's like, oh, well, actually you lost 2 pounds of fat, but you also gained 2 pounds of muscle. And so your weight stayed the same, but your body fat percentage has now improved, right? So you're getting healthy, but it's just not reflecting on the scale alone. You have to get a more detailed measurement. So places like 5 Star Nutrition, they do it for free. They have it's called an InBody measurement that you can go and use. You just step on that. You don't have to. All you gotta do is take your shoes off and you hold these 2 little handlebars, and it'll give you your total body with your water weight. It'll break it down, your muscle mass and fat mass breakdown by limb, right? So your left arm compared to your right arm, left leg, right leg, all that stuff with that total body fat percentage. And so that'd be the best way to track and measure and ensure that you are appropriately tracking your progress, right? Where versus just using the scale, right? So those are the first 2 things I would always recommend when it comes down to trying to start and build your awareness in relation to your own personal health. So the next thing we'll get into is, I guess, exercise. It's probably gonna go black, so I'm gonna pop over here to see if there's any questions. Just people joining in. All right. if you have questions, throw them in the chat again, because I'm freestyling. And then Ebony, if you see any questions that I'm not seeing, please let me know, and I'll so exercise. So that's the next thing. I feel like a lot of people jump into without having the proper awareness of or understanding and what's necessary, right? I make a big deal about New Year's resolutions. Kind of the reason I'm doing this stream right now. And the thing about it is, we have to know, again, you have to know where you are. You have to know what you're capable of. You're not going to be able to establish a brand new habit or routine overnight by like, hey, the new year or starting next week, I'm gonna start going to the gym every day. Don't do it. Don't do it. And one of the reasons I encourage you to progressively incorporate exercise into your routine is because when we're motivation is great, but you probably heard before, like, discipline and consistency is way more impactful than being motivated, right? Because you get motivated one day and it's like, all right, I'm going to the gym, and I'm gonna get on the treadmill and I'm gonna hit the weights and I'm gonna get in the sauna and I'm gonna you have a great workout. Yeah, you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours at the gym, and then you're so sore, achy, and worn out, that it's hard to kind of rinse and repeat. And so that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to create the lifestyle of like, every now and then I get in there and I have a great workout, I go hard, but in the grand scheme of things, I accomplish nothing, right? Versus like, hey, going in with a minimal mindset as far as like, hey, what you're going to go and try to accomplish is going to help with building more consistency, right? If you go in like, hey, I'm just going to go in here, spend about 30 minutes or so, just kind of getting in the groove of things. Either I'm going to spend some time on the treadmill, I'm going to spend some time on the weight machines and all that stuff, just 30 minutes, but something where, hey, it's still good quality and effective, but it's not going to wear you out, right? So it's again, I'm a track guy, but it's having like the Olympian mindset, right? And the Olympics come around every 4 years, right? So these athletes that are training for the Olympics, they're not waiting for the year of the Olympics to try and go all out with their training and get prepared for the race. No, they're taking their time over the course of the 4 years, working on specific details. Like, hey, year one, so-and-so might just be working on building their conditioning and their thresholds. Year two, they're working on their block starts. Year three, they're working on their endurance or their speed, right? Different things. So then by the time the Olympics come around, they can put everything together, right, and execute and do it properly. Same thing we have to do with our approach to incorporating exercise and a healthy lifestyle when we haven't had one previously. Okay, so especially if you're bouncing back from an injury, if you're bouncing back from back in the day, you were an athlete and it's been some time. A lot of times we have the mindset that we can do things that we're not that we actually can't do. So you want to kind of start at a pace where you're able to maintain and gradually increase. So we're gradually increasing the volume. We're gradually increasing the intensity. We're gradually increasing as time goes along so that our body has the time to adapt and adjust appropriately. And that way we're decreasing our risk of injury, right? We are allowing ourselves proper recovery, and we're not discouraging ourselves, right? Because it's very hard and discouraging to go into a workout knowing you're already sore, knowing you're achy and you're tired, but you're trying to find that motivation that you had, a couple of days ago, but now you're just tired, right? So So when it comes down to that, one of the things I always recommend, if you haven't been working out for a while, instead of having the plan of like, hey, I'm gonna work out 3 days a week, 4 days a week, man, start with one. Start with one. That's it, because that you establish your goal, right? And then you're able to accomplish your goal. And so, and then that way you're already starting off with wins. Okay, don't put it there. My wife brought me some apple cider. You said, now what? It's these two. Like this. Sure. It's a delay, so I'm trying to see now. Ebony came to. All right. Is that? I don't know. You tell me.
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about for that?
Yeah, you can't even see the website.
Oh, I had flashed it for a minute.
It's okay.
All right.
Yes.
You're welcome. All right, she wanted me to make sure y'all could see the website. TDEE calculator. TDEE. Total Daily Energy Expenditure. That's what TDEE stands for. Total Daily Energy Expenditure. So anyway, I was saying, so start off with, something like 1 day a week as far as your goal when it comes to trying to get into a routine with exercise and going to the gym. Now that's one. Now, pause. Let me back it up. The other thing is, one of my biggest rule of thumbs is start where you're at too. I know I don't mind going to the gym. I love going to the gym, but that might not be everyone's thing. And the weight training is very, very significantly important, but if that may not be where you want to begin, that may not be where you're able to begin. And so you can start off with, hey, if it's walking, if it's doing, body weight exercises, whatever, working out in your home, all those different things. The goal here is you always want to just set yourself up for success, not for failure, right? If you know you're you struggle with time, with managing your time and your days, and you like, oh yeah, I'm gonna commit to 4 days a week. Maybe you should probably if your commitment is I'm gonna get up in the morning and I'm gonna start getting up every morning and go work out at 5 a.m. But you struggle to go to bed on time, right? Set yourself up for success. So that way you can kind of you can structure it to where you are accomplishing your goals without creating any discouragement, right? So I recommend starting off with 1 day a week. Okay, 1 day a week, and that can be your choice if you want to do it. If it wants to be cardio, if you want it to be more strength resistance training, whatever you feel is appropriate. So, but don't try and bite off more than you can chew. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then also be mindful of your abilities and your conditioning. So that's another thing that I see a lot of, where it's for some people who do want to get into doing more cardio when it comes to running or and all that stuff. They're like, hey, I'm gonna go out here and try and start off with just running a mile. Sounds good. A mile is harder than you would expect, though. And again, when it comes down to exercise and working out, we want to be mindful. We want to be mindful in the aspect of, are we exercising at the appropriate intensities? Okay, the intensity that you engage in exercise at is vital, because that dictates how long you're able to continue and how much you're able to follow up on this, right? If you do something where it's at your maximum effort and intensity, kind of like the example I was giving, when it's like, hey, I'm feeling good and I'm motivated, so I'm gonna go spend 2 hours at the gym, I'm gonna do the sauna, I'm gonna do the treadmill, I'm gonna hit the weights, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can. That also, well, you're probably maxed out your total effort, right? And that shows, that also kind of highlights a mindset of like, well, hey, I'm gonna get all this done today because you know what? Honestly, I might not come back, right? But if you can cut it into increments, like, hey, I'm just gonna do 30 minutes. I'm gonna come in, 10, 15 minutes on some cardio machine, and 10, 15 minutes of core and abs or weight training or machine, and then hey, I can come back in 2 days and do this again, right? You're gonna set yourself up for success. So start there where you're able to set yourself up for success. Now, when it comes down to the cardio, like I was mentioning, like starting off with, hey, I'm gonna try and run a mile, I wouldn't recommend doing that either. I would recommend, if you're trying, especially if you know you're deconditioned, which means like you haven't worked out in a while, you're not in the best shape endurance wise and all those different things, start off with what we call intervals. All right, so interval training. So interval training, it's very simple, and it can be applied to both cardio and to strength training, right? In strength training, we normally call it Tabatas, right? Is a form of interval training, kind of like HIIT workouts and stuff. But what you want to do, especially if it's related to like running or anything, if you haven't ran in a while, or you have knee issues, back issues, plantar fasciitis, stuff like that, then you want to start off with intervals. So what I would recommend is like, hey, a 30 seconds on, minute and a half off type of thing. So hey, you're gonna run for 30 seconds, walk for a minute and a half, and repeat that however many times, right? Until you've completed an entire mile or whatever distance that you want to accomplish. Same thing with with strength training or something, like, hey, if you're doing body weight exercises, you can do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Hey, I'm gonna squat for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, and repeat, right? So that way, what that does with the interval training, it's going to build what we call your threshold, your hypertrophy threshold. Okay, that's what's going to help improve your overall conditioning, right? Your endurance and your ability to manage what we call lactic acid, right? So that's that buildup of when the muscle fatigue and the tightness starts to build up in the body, or the muscles that you're exercising, and that fatigue starts to settle in. Well, when we do the interval style of training, where we give kind of a decent amount of intense exercise with a decent short rest to allow the body to recover a little bit, and then we hit it again with that intensity, that helps build those thresholds to where your body is able to manage it a lot better. And so what you will find is like your recovery from exercise will start to improve, your soreness, your ability to manage soreness and all those different things as it relates to exercise will improve with interval training. So if you're not sure where to start, I have a few resources on my website that are free, and that they are structured in an interval training format, right? So that's what I would recommend kind of to start. And if you need something related to running, I have a walk to run or a run to walk program, kind of build you up to running a 5K. And so a lot of my experience and time has been with working with the military, active duty members, and so preparing them for PT testing and all those different things. But as many of you might already know as well, like I've coached for years. I'm a track coach. I've coached basketball. I've coached a lot of other things, and I'm a strength and conditioning coach. So I've worked with a lot of different sports and athletes. But I'm gonna take a sip of this real quick. Oh, that's good. It's hot though. So yeah, if you need, I don't mind sharing these resources. So I bring up the military and all that stuff because a lot of this stuff I've already given away for free. So I don't mind sharing it and giving it out. It's not that big of a deal. So just hit me up if you're interested from that standpoint. So I don't know. kind of talk y'all ear off so far. So let me see. All right. So so as far as exercise goes, getting started, that's the things you want to keep in mind. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Kind of progressively work your way into it. And as I mentioned, or I probably mentioned it in a video I posted on TikTok a couple years ago, but my recommendation would be like, hey, like if I was doing like a New Year's resolution type thing, like for the month of January, my goal would be to go work out, once a week, right? And then in February, twice a week. And then in March, 3 times a week. And you just kind of keep increasing based on, your progress that way until you hit the appropriate goal that you would desire, right? So if your goal is to work out 5-6 days a week, all that stuff, then, you know what I mean? You take that amount of time to build it up to being able to do that. So again, your body can adapt appropriately. Now, in regards to accomplishing your goals when it comes to fitness, all right, that gets very specific. It gets very detailed, and it can be very unique. One of the biggest issues with fitness influencers, I'm gonna say, or I guess like is the whole kind of the whole selling you a dream type thing, right? A lot of it reminds me of back in the day when we used to stand in the checkout lines at the grocery stores, and the magazines used to be up there, and it'd be like, oh, hey, get 6-pack ab in 8 weeks and stuff like. And that's not gonna take place. That's not gonna happen, right? The first thing to know is that you are not able to spot reduce. Spot reducing would mean like, hey, a lot of people always say, hey, I just want to lose this area right here, this midsection, the love handles. I want to get rid of the love handle. That is not how our body works. All right, you're not going to just, hey, let's do a bunch of abs and core work, and then hey, you're going to lose your love handles and you're going to have the goal. We can't dictate how our body distributes and manages fat. Okay, so it's like a total body aspect, total body approach that you want to look at. Shout out to Total Body Fitness in St. Robert, Missouri. I used to work there. So, but yeah, we want to have this total body mindset when it comes down to targeting your goals. And the reason I bring it up is because I've been viewing a lot of different stuff on like Instagram and TikTok and stuff where people are kind of downplaying different styles of exercise and fitness. So I'm going to kind of, I guess, take a stab at explaining the benefit and all the different types of forms of exercise and fitness that are available. So when you look at like HIIT, boot camp, style workouts. So we're talking about like Orange Theory, your F45s, all of that, functional fitness type stuff. That has its time and its place. I believe that is a great place to begin, especially if you need to increase your level of conditioning, right? So if you haven't worked out in quite some time or never, right? Well, first of all, group fitness classes is the perfect place to start, because if you're doing a group fitness class and you have at least even a half decent instructor, you're going to get information on how to structure some workouts, how to do a lot of different exercises correctly, right? Which is important, because if you don't know, if nobody is cueing you on how to do a proper squat or how to do a proper push-up or how to do a proper anything, or a RDL, Roman deadlift, you're putting yourself at a higher risk of injury. So in a group fitness class, if you have a half decent instructor, at least they're going to at least be cueing you on things like, all right, hey, so when we squat, make sure you keep your heels flat. You push your hips back first, then you bend at the knee, right? Whatever the case may be. just so you're gaining some knowledge and information on proper execution of exercises, but also with the style and structure of these group fitness classes when it comes to like HIIT, boot camp, Camp Gladiator, all those different type of organizations and programs. That is a good play. It serves a purpose as far as like, hey, getting you into fitness in a fun environment, and then also kind of building your conditioning, right? Especially if you never done anything like that. I remember years ago when me and my wife were dating, I was a boot camp instructor at Results Training Gym in Sacramento, and she started attending in preparation for her entering into the military, into the Air Force. So like she could attest, you know what I mean, the whole aspect of kind of getting into the exercise routine in a group fitness class where we have different stations and all those different things. So so those type of fitness programs serve a huge purpose. Now, on the flip side, they also serve a good purpose for people who are already fit, right? And your goal isn't, you're not getting used to, introduced to a new, new programming or anything, but it's more so like what we would consider cross training. So what I mean by that is, so I still do a lot of functional fitness, HIIT, boot camp style workouts. And it's not necessarily, and it's not me bragging or nothing, but it's not necessarily because I'm trying to improve my conditioning or anything of that nature, but I can get a very quick and intense workout in a very short period of time. I can target all the muscle groups that I want. And because I'm not specifically right now focused on trying to build muscle or trying to lose fat or do any, you know what I mean, or anything specific, it's a fun workout. So I do a lot of HIIT style workouts and all those different things just for me, because I get that, that intensity I like, right? The heart rate goes up and all that stuff. And then I'm able to recover really well and get my workout done quickly and not miss a workout day. So it serves kind of multiple purposes. Now, if you have more of a specific goal when it comes down to your health and fitness, then everything is going to kind of happen in phases. So since I got this whiteboard, I'm gonna just use it. So we talked about like we said HIIT / boot camp style classes, right? So we're gonna kind of take things into phases. Now, just to kind of do a quick background on a training phase. A training phase could last anywhere from, I would say, 6 to 12 weeks. Okay, 6 to 12 weeks. So what I mean by that is if you're new again to training, to exercise, fitness, all those different things, right? And you decide to start off in a HIIT boot camp style format or a group class or something like that, you want to stick to it. You want to stick with it for at least 6 weeks, right? You want to try and be consistent for at least 6 weeks. It takes our bodies about 6 to 8 weeks minimum to make a training adaptation. All right. So you have to be doing something for about 6 to 8 weeks consistently in order for your body to actually start benefiting and starting to adapt and benefit from that stimulus that you are placing on it. Right. So if you do HIIT boot camp for about 6 to 8 weeks, you can do it up to 12 weeks. You can do it for how long you want, but if you have a specific goal, right, then you want your training phases to cycle through so that you can kind of start, really focusing more intently on the goal that's at hand. All right. So HIIT boot camp would be kind of like a place to start to build your conditioning, kind of get you introduced to exercise and all those different things. Now, if you're not going to work with a personal trainer and all that stuff, that I know sometimes can be intimidating to work with one, and it can be intimidating to try and venture out and do all this on your own without one. But again, what you want to be looking at is, again, focusing on a 6 to 8, 6 to 12 week program where you're focusing on very similar movements and activities, so that you're progressing, and everything still needs to be catered toward whatever that goal is, right? So the next step obviously would be, depending on what you're comfortable with after doing group fitness classes, whether you're doing it at home, you can still do this stuff at home, and it could all be body weight or with dumbbells or with kettlebells, all those different things. Depending on your ability and what you're capable of, the next thing would be moving into resistance training, right? So strength training. So resistance training can consist of machines, obviously dumbbells, barbells, resistance bands, all those different things. Everything is useful in that regard. So everything can be beneficial in that regard. So resistance training, whatever, resistance training. So now it's a lot of different. There's a lot. Every trainer is going to be different. Everyone's going to have a little bit of a different opinion, right? But one of the things, I do a lot of assessments when I train, and so one of the things you want to definitely have awareness of is like previous injuries and limitations, obviously, when it comes to resistance training, because that will also help determine whether if it's necessary that you start with machines, or are you good to start off with using free weights, dumbbells, or barbells, and all those different things, right? All of them are going to have a slightly different impact on intensity and how your body is responding to the stimulus, right? Because obviously on a machine, if I'm in a machine where a chest press machine, well, it only moves in one direction, right? But if I go get dumbbells and I go to do bench press, right? Well, I have two separate dumbbells in hand. And so when I go to lift, depending on which arm is stronger and which arm I have more balance and control, right, it's going to kind of dictate, the balance I feel with doing that. And then same thing with if you're using a barbell, right? Well, hey, if I have a stronger side than the other, you're going to feel that imbalance. And that's, it will dictate where the stress is on the joints and throughout the body. So you want to kind of be mindful of that. As far as my concern when it comes to resistance training, this is the most vital. Now, the thing about resistance training is it's another area that gets very complex, right? Because if I was to ask anyone, about like, hey, what do you do when you do resistance training, or what's your go-to, or whatever you heard you're supposed to do, most people are going to be like, oh yeah, you do 3 sets of 10, and not technically wrong, but it's not universally correct either. So, because again, when we're looking at what is the specific goal that we're doing, that's going to dictate, the number of sets and reps. So when I say 3 sets of 10, right, so that's 3 sets of 10 repetitions on every exercise that you're doing for that day. So when it comes down to resistance training, 3 sets of 10 is not it's not bad, but it's not always going to be the completion of what you should be doing entirely, right? Based on your goal. So sometimes you might do stuff where we work based on your goal in ranges. All right, so ranges. most often with almost every client I work with, we work in ranges. So it's never a set number of like, oh, we're doing 3 sets of 12 reps or 3 sets of 8. It's most often always going to be a range, right? So like, hey, we're going to do, 3 to 5 sets of somewhere between 8 and 15 reps. It depends, because it depends on the exercise. One of the things that you'll also have awareness of or take notice of is for many women, they're stronger in their lower extremities than they are in their upper extremities, right? So, they can do more. They can do heavier or more intensity when it comes to leg workouts than they can with upper body workouts. And then for men, it's vice versa, right? Most men are stronger in their upper extremities than they are in their legs, right? And so, depending on what the goal is of the workout routine and what you're trying to accomplish, right? We are going to adjust based on that. So that's why I do the ranges, right? So when it comes to resistance training, one of the biggest and most important things when it comes to weight training and resistance training is your rest. Your rest interval. That's the biggest and most important thing. If you are trying to build muscle, if you are trying to increase your strength, your rest periods have to be longer, right? Many people misunderstand this for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is when they're weight training and they're trying to build muscle or increase strength, they're not lifting heavy enough. They're not using enough weight, and so because they're not lifting enough weight, it leads to them not having enough rest, right? Because hey, if I'm doing this weight because I'm comfortable with this weight, I can knock it out. So I'm only resting 30 seconds to a minute and then doing it again. So you're basically just doing strength endurance at that point. Anytime your rest is less than a minute, 30 seconds or less of rest, and you're able to duplicate the same, number of reps or intensity, right? So, hey, if I do 10 reps and I rest for 30 seconds and I can do 10 reps again with the same weight, you're doing endurance, okay? When it comes down to building muscle, increasing strength, you should not be able to repeat the same intensity or the same or duplicate the same set that you just completed with anything less than 90 seconds of rest. All right, 90 seconds of rest is the minimum. That would get you into what we call the hypertrophy phase, which is, again, what I was talking about earlier as far as trying to increase those thresholds in your ability for your body to adapt, recover, and adjust to the workout. So, and then the heavier the weight is, the more intense the workout is, the longer that rest period needs to be. So I hope that makes sense when it comes down to the resistance training aspect of it. You want to make sure that you are, doing the appropriate intensity, the appropriate rest, and then adjusting your sets and reps based on your goal, right? So endurance, if you're trying to improve strength endurance, you're usually going to do 15 reps or more. All right, 15 plus, very lightweight, right? If you're trying to do hypertrophy, which is, again, that moderate or that threshold conditioning, overall, functionality aspect, then you're going to be somewhere between 8 and 15 reps, right? But about 90 seconds of rest, moderate weight, again, moderate reps, moderate load, and moderate intensity. But then if you're really trying to increase strength or build more muscle mass, right, then that's where you're going to be 8 reps or less, somewhere between 3 to 8 reps, heavier weight, and then extended rest period, at least 2 to 3 minutes of rest between your sets. In order, and you're still doing probably at least 4 sets on each exercise to kind of gain that muscle or that strength increase. So those are things that you want to be mindful of. So another aspect of health and fitness is CrossFit, right? Now, a lot of people get on CrossFit. You know, it's a cult following and all that type stuff, um, and it's dangerous, and everybody's going to get hurt, and all this other different stuff. Initially, when CrossFit first hit the scene, yeah, it did have a high risk of injury, but just like with anything in health and fitness over the years, with more research, more studies, more training, more all that, everything gets better. Everything's gotten, and so has CrossFit. CrossFit has gotten extremely better, and it's very useful depending again on your lifestyle, your goal, and what you're trying to accomplish. Right. So with CrossFit, it's obviously a lot more intensity. It's a lot more of a total encompassing aspect of fitness, right? With, man, you're doing everything from strength training, Olympic lifting, running, balance and stability, with all of the, the handstands. So you're getting a total body transformation, so to speak, when it comes down to CrossFit. Now, is CrossFit for everyone? No, I would not recommend starting with CrossFit. If you've never worked out or anything like that, or especially if you've never engaged in any type of intense activity, right? So if you didn't play sports, or, you weren't in the military, or I wouldn't recommend starting with CrossFit. I would say start off with that HIIT boot camp, work your way up to CrossFit. Okay. Because it is intense. It is scalable, right? I know at CrossFit CrossFit Colorado Springs, and in Colorado Springs, they do a great job as far as their classes. They have it broken down into like A, B, and C levels of ability. So you're able to kind of scale every workout to your ability, right? If you can't do the handstand push-ups, they have a modification for you, right? If you can't do certain movements, they have modifications for those participants. But I would not recommend starting with CrossFit. It is I do say it is another level of fitness. I do believe it's a lot more competitive. It's a lot of fun because it adds that competitive aspect along with that community, right? The group, just like group fitness classes and all that stuff do. So I wouldn't recommend starting there, but I would highly recommend it, especially if you are someone who does come from a background of sports, and you like the team environment, you like the competitive edge and all those different things. And people, every CrossFit class I've ever been to throughout the years in different locations have always been super encouraging to the participants, and it's been great. So now, so it does serve a purpose, I think. And I'm not trying to say it's exclusive to more elite, higher level athletes, but I do think athletes that are more capable, less injury prone, all those different things, would have a better benefit with CrossFit than someone who is a little bit more, kind of getting introduced into the fitness industry, or coming off of some prior, limitations or injuries. All right. So that's that's my tidbit on CrossFit. So then we got like Pilates, yoga, and all that other stuff, right? And we got some other stuff too, but this stuff is obviously it's useful, right? So we got like Pilates, yoga, and what we call oh my goodness, mobility exercise, things that improve range of motion, mobility, all that good stuff. Definitely useful in the industry for health and fitness, because we do need to be more limber. But the only thing I will say when it comes down to like your yoga, Pilates, and all that stuff is it's great for range of motion, mobility, increasing those type things, but it's not necessarily going to be the thing that's going to help you manage your weight. So I hope that makes sense, right? It's not going to be the thing that helps you with managing your weight. If your goal is to lose weight or to gain muscle and stuff like that, Pilates and yoga is probably not going to, you're going to see some result. You might see some result in that regard, but it's not going to be the thing that's going to take you from, hey man, I'm trying to lose a total of 20 pounds. It's not going to take you from A to B or A to Z doing that alone. Doing that in conjunction and including, you know, resistance training or CrossFit or HIIT boot camp, right? Doing it as an addition, yeah, that's going to obviously bring some benefit and help with recovery and how your body bounces back, but it's not necessarily going to, it's not going to help you lose weight. Another aspect of health and fitness we have is functional fitness, right? Now, functional fitness. Functional fitness can be incorporated in any of these, really, right? I don't know if you guys, if you've been on social media, you've probably seen like some of the NFL players and basketball players that have been going to Pilates, right, and how intense that is for them, because they don't, you know, most athletes don't do a lot of kind of, oh man, what is it called? A lot of athletes don't do a lot of exercises where they are maintaining muscle tension without exercising. Isometric contraction. That's what I was trying to think of. Isometric movement. So they do more functional movements, right? So, but functional fitness can be included into all of these different styles of training. What is functional fitness? Typically, some people will explain it as, okay, with functional fitness, you're working two muscle groups at the same time in certain exercises. But technically, you are working two muscle groups, but one muscle group that's constant is your core. All right. So functional fitness is engaging your core more frequently than you would traditionally if you were doing certain exercise. So if you were bench pressing, like your core is engaged, right? When you're bench pressing with a barbell and you're laying flat on the bench, but again, it's still your chest, triceps, and shoulders that's doing a lot of work in a bench press. But if I hang my hips off the bench and just my shoulder blades are on the bench and I'm still bench pressing and I'm keeping my hips pushed up, squeezing the glutes, now I have more activation and engagement with my core, right? Making it more of a functional movement. The other aspect of functional movements or functional fitness is trying to have it mimic daily activity, daily exercise or movements that you engage in. So that way, again, we're improving the function and the ability to do those things, right? So if you ever heard of like a Turkish get up, it's an exercise. You lay on the ground, holding the dumbbell up toward the ceiling, and you stand all the way up. You get all the way up from the ground, keeping that dumbbell aimed straight up toward the ceiling the entire time. It's a functional movement, and it is difficult, but I would compare it to like, so it's helping us improve the ability to get off the ground, right? Because as we age and we get more clumsy or we get more fragile, and it's more difficult for people to get all the way on the ground and get back up. So that's your functional fitness. Now, so that is all of our. Oh no, it's not. I got another one for you. All right, so we got Zumba, spin classes, etc. All of like your cardio, dance, fitness, step classes. Ooh, my head is itching, y'all. All those different things, right? So that's another, and I don't know if you can see it on IG. I'm gonna push that back a little bit. right? So Zumba, spin, etc. Though that is another aspect of of fitness, right? So your cardio oriented classes and workouts. Now those are great initially. So similar to now, because I'm gonna include running, like distance running, and I'm gonna include that with the Zumba spin as that part of that, etc. Right? When it comes down to fitness progress, all of those things are great initially, right? The first time, again, using the example, like the first time you go out and run a mile, trying to get in shape, right? It sucks. It's hard. It's intense. It takes you 20 minutes to recover after, right? You're sweating, all those great things, right? But then, hey, what? Maybe 6 weeks, maybe if that, probably sooner. That mile is not the same intensity. It's not the same level of difficulty. Same thing with like Zumba and spin. Now the only thing that's different with Zumba, right, is it adds an aspect of coordination and rhythm, right, to kind of stay on task and be able to move accordingly. But with spin, running, and all those different things, right, that's again, it's kind of more of a sustained cardio. Level of intensity. Now with spin classes and stuff, they do have the intensities where you're climbing up a hill and you're sprinting and all those different things, but for the most part, it's a continuous aspect of my wife's here on me. It's a continuous aspect of cardio that you're maintaining throughout the class or throughout the workout, and so it's beneficial to a degree, but then it's one of those things that we often see we're able to plateau with very quickly, right? So you start off, with spin, with Zumba or with running, right? And those first couple of weeks or so, it's pretty intense, it's pretty engaging, it's pretty effective. But the longer we continue with it, if we're not progressing the intensity, the volume, right, properly, we will see a plateau, right? So you'll start off with, again, hey, you might start seeing some results as far as like, hey, all right, you're losing weight, you're burning calories and all stuff, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. But you're losing weight, you're feeling accomplished, but then one thing you'll start to notice is like your recovery is going to start improving. Like that, again, that first week, first time, it's taking you 20 minutes to recover after a class or after a workout. But then, hey, long and behold, 5 minutes after the class is done, you're not sweating, you're recovered, your breathing is normal. That is the initial sign that the plateau is starting to begin, right? Your body has conditioned and adjusted to that training stimulus, right? So not saying that it's a bad thing, but one of the biggest things I always go over with a lot of people in regards to exercise and activity is knowing the difference. There's a difference. There's a difference between physical activity and exercise. There's a difference between physical activity and exercise. Okay. I'm gonna answer this question in a second, Janae. So there's a difference between physical activity and exercise. So what I mean by that, for one, walking, right? Walking is a physical activity. It's a physical activity. It's, yes, you're gonna burn calories. It's movement. It's your body is being active, but walking is not going to produce results, if that makes sense, right? You might you could walk every day, you can get your 5,000 steps, right? 10,000 steps a day, whatever. And you might lose 2, 3, maybe 5 pounds, but that's going to be the extent, because your body, again, you're going to plateau because it's a physical activity. exercise, the purpose of exercise is to have a result, to gain results, right? To lose, hey, that 20 pounds, to gain more muscle mass, to lower your body fat percentage, to, to change not your genetic makeup, but your medical conditions, right? That's the purpose of exercise. Physical activity does not produce results. And so where I bring it up because sometimes we get engaged with a certain exercise, right? And if we do it for long enough, it becomes physical activity. I hope that makes sense, right? So someone who is an avid runner, like, hey, they could run miles and miles and miles, right? They're conditioned. They've been doing it for years, whatever the case may be. It has gotten to a point for them now that it's a physical activity. How do we know it's a physical activity? Based on your heart rate. All right. So what is it like? So again, the first time you go run a mile, right? Again, it's going to be super intense. You're going to sweat. It's going to take you 20 minutes to recover. The reason it's taking you 20 minutes to recover is because your heart rate has gotten to a level where you're at your maximal threshold heart rate wise, right? So your heart is boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's beating. And so it takes 15, somewhere between 12 to 20 minutes. If you get into that red zone for your heart rate, it takes about 12 to 20 minutes for that thing to get back down to a normal rhythm of recovery. So there's that, right? But as you continue to train and get better conditioned, well, guess what? You're no longer getting to the red zone. Eventually, you're just getting up to the yellow zone. And then eventually, you're only getting to the green zone. And then eventually, your heart rate's only getting into that blue zone. Right? So I'm talking about for a runner who's been running for years, right? And they're running 3, 5, 7 miles on a regular basis. Well, yeah, they could, even though they're running a long distance, but they've done it so frequently, their heart rate's no longer getting to a point of, of progress, right? Because we have to at least, at minimum, be in that green, yellow zone to be making progress when it comes down to the intensity and the exercises that we engage in, right? But if we get to the condition to the point where, hey, our heart rate's just only getting into that blue zone, and I know y'all probably like, what is he talking about, blue? If you Google, because I don't want to mess nothing. Hold on, maybe I don't really want to mess nothing up. If you Google like heart rate training zones chart or something like that, it'll probably pop up. It may or may not be in the colors I'm using, but like your very normal zone, like resting zone is gonna probably be white, right? And then you might have like your recovery zone might be blue, and then that first initial exercise zone is going to be green. And then when you start getting a little bit more intense, like that hypertrophy stuff I've been talking about, that's going to be yellow. And then like your maximum effort zone is going to be red. And for every person, our heart rate zones are a little bit different based on our age, based on our conditioning, all those different things, right? So again, the whole point of understanding the difference between exercise and physical activity is what is this activity or this movement, where is it placing my heart rate? If it's not getting you to that green or above, it's physical activity. It's not going to progress you into a level of exercise. It will improve your heart function, your blood circulation, and all those things. Yeah, you have that benefit, but as far as a benefit as it relates to weight management, fitness or exercise goals, it's not going to do it. All right. So So that's my thing when it comes down to like Zumba, spin, running, all those different things. They plateau a lot quicker, and they start putting us into that area where it's not necessarily an exercise anymore. It's a physical activity. If you want to maintain an exercise zone using these type of systems, right? That's where you get more into the interval training I was speaking of, right? So, hey, the higher intensity during your spin class, so climbing up a hill and coming, if you're doing the Stairmaster, or if you are running, doing sprint intervals. Sprint intervals don't necessarily have to be 100 meters, right? If you're an avid distance runner, right, 400-meter repeats or half-mile repeats, things like that, can be considered as sprint intervals for those distances that help put you into those thresholds, right? But ultimately, it's higher intensity, getting your heart rate into that green, yellow, red zone in order to make sure that these exercises are maintained. Now, let me talk about this one thing. So the other thing when it comes down to fitness, right, is understanding. Similar to understanding physical fitness versus exercise, understanding that burning calories does not mean you're making progress. Let me say that again. You're burning calories. The amount of calories you burn during a workout, the amount that you sweat during a workout, does not equate to making progress. It does not equate to results. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel accomplished, but that does not mean that, hey, because you burned 1,000 calories, right, running or doing this class, or you sweated, you lost 4 pounds sweating, right? That does not mean that you are making progress towards your goal. All right. Why? Why aren't we making progress toward our goal? Because we're burning calories. Burning calories doesn't necessarily mean that you have utilized and broken down the muscle tissue in order for it to be repaired. Okay, so you can burn 1,000 calories running. Now, when you run and you're running at a steady state, at a steady pace, it gets to a point where you're so much in rhythm that your muscles are not doing a lot of the work. A majority of the work when you're doing cardio is coming from your heart and your lungs, right? So your heart and your lungs are doing most of the work. Now, our heart and lungs aren't. We're not breaking down the tissues in those organs, right? So when it comes down to I burned 1,000 calories, and then I go and eat and consume however many calories, 500 calories at my meal, and all those different things. It's going to go to replenish your energy stores and all those different things, but that's about the extent that those nutrients that you're consuming are doing. But when I go into weight training, right? Hey, you can burn 400 to 800 calories during a really effective weight resistance workout. But when I do that, and I worked legs and I worked my arms and back and all this other stuff, well, I have ripped my muscles, my tissues, right? The tissues of my muscles have been separated, and so now when I go eat my meal, I'm still going to consume those same amount of calories, which are going to go to replenishing my energy stores. But then they're also going to use the other nutrients that are in those calories to fix and put to repair the muscle tissues that I have ripped apart to help with that recovery. So does that make sense? So what I'm saying is when we weight train, right, and we burn calories and all that other stuff, more happens in our body metabolically. There's more of a metabolic impact, right, on our metabolism right? Because now we have to repair muscles. We also have to re-energize the energy stores and all those different things to help with the recovery. But when we do cardio, since a majority of the work comes from my heart and lungs, and if you tear something in your heart and lungs, like that's an emergency. You got to go get, so the repair process is different. The recovery process is completely different. So I hope that makes sense. If not, you can hit me up and I can try to explain it further. But yeah, so burning calories does not necessarily mean that you are making progress, right, toward accomplishing your goals. Because again, you have to remember, going back to what we were talking about with the TDEE calculator, when we burn calories, those calories have to be replenished anyway, right? It's not just a game about burning calories. We don't want to create too big of a deficit for our system. So be mindful from that aspect. All right. And so I have a question about losing weight in the arm. So kind of a twofold answer in regards to that when it comes down to losing weight. Now, the thing is, similar to what I was saying about the spot reducing earlier, spot reducing isn't really a thing, right? But even though it's not a thing, we still generally attempt to do so. So when we talk about trying to lose weight, right? I use the example of the midsection, right? So, hey, people always want to lose weight in their midsection, trying to get rid of the fat, which is it's a lot more difficult because the muscles that we have in our midsection are structured differently than the muscles that we have in like our arms and in our legs and all those different things. So as far as like trying to, because one aspect of, I guess to answer the question, one aspect of trying to lose weight in a particular area is gaining muscle in that particular area. You have two tissues in that area, right? You have muscle, your muscle fibers, and you have your fat fibers. And so you're basically, if one is growing, another is shrinking, right? To a degree. Thank you. So when it comes down to trying to, like, if you're specifically trying to manage weight in your arms, right? The goal there would be focusing on trying to build more muscle in that area. So a lot of push-ups, a lot of tricep extensions, a lot of bicep curls, right? Even you want to do like grip strength, right? To build your forearm. To build your forearm. So you want to do stuff like with the grip strength. But that would be the best area, right? Because we also probably heard, like, it's always people that always want to lose the fat that's right here on their arms. And again, like I said, we cannot control how our body stores and places fat. Sometimes that's genetic, and how people are just made up. Like some people, they store all their, some families store all their fat in their thighs, some in their upper back, some in their midsection. It's different. And so we can't always control that, right? And so we can't always control how we manage and lose the weight in certain areas either. But you can try and focus, because the way our body works is, when I'm talking about like the body composition thing, as far as, your body fat percentage, the way that kind of works is your body has to be convinced it no longer needs that unnecessary fat. You have to remember, so a lot of our fat storage has come as a result of our bodies feeling like it's in an emergency, right? Or it's or overconsumption. So your body has been placing this fat into a storage area in case it's necessary, in case it's needed, and to sustain life at some point, right? And so the way our bodies work when it comes to controlling our fat content and all those different things is it has to be convinced like, all right, based on how much how many calories you're consuming and the structure of those calories as far as like your proteins, fats, carbs, all that other stuff, and it's getting everything that it's needed, and then what you're doing, the demand that you're placing on it through exercise and your daily routine, and right, all of those things are going to kind of equate to your body recognizing like, okay, well, based on that, I no longer need this excess amount of fat. So we're going to start to decrease that, especially as you build more muscle. So I hope that answers the question. But it's not again, like I said, it's not a guarantee. We still want to focus on total body fitness. But if you're specifically concerned about your arms, your legs, and all those different things, what we want to structure and do exercises that cater to those muscle groups, to building more muscle or increasing strength in those areas. I will say this though as well. So when I was talking about the resistance training and how that is very it can get very complex based on what your goal is. So the thing is, earlier I mentioned women most often are weaker in their upper extremities than they are in their lower extremities, right? And that's the general thing. But the other thing and concerns to that is our muscle groups. I'm trying to think of how to say this without getting too technical. Our muscle groups are different types of muscle groups. Like I mentioned earlier, like the muscles in the core are different than the muscles in the arm and the legs and yada, yada, yada. We have what we consider power muscles, endurance muscles, and things of that nature. So when it comes down to how you exercise them, it depends on that type of muscle. One of the biggest things I've noticed when it comes down to like weight training, specifically, for instance, arms, bicep curls. A lot of people do bicep curls with really heavy weight, trying to build their biceps and stuff. And for some people it works, but for a majority it doesn't, because your bicep is not a power muscle. If that makes sense, right? So our power muscles are going to be muscles in our legs, our chest, and our back. They are used to produce a lot of force and a lot of power, right? I'm not going to, like, if I'm gonna push a couch, right? I'm using my chest. I'm not going to be using my biceps or my triceps alone to just try and push a couch. Because they're not designed to produce force. They're designed to sustain for an extended period of time. So your arms, like your biceps, triceps, they are more of an endurance muscle. And so to get more effect, to have a more effective workout, you want to go for a little bit higher reps. So you may not, since you're trying to increase strength and improve muscle size, you don't necessarily need to do 15 to 20 reps, right? Which is the goal when endurance is what you're doing. But since it's an endurance muscle, you're going to be at least at 12 to 15 reps, but heavier than you would if you were actually shooting for that 20. So I hope that makes sense. So like your biceps, triceps, your calves, those are endurance muscles. So you should train them as such. They're not built to produce a lot of power, right? So a lot of people trying to grow the size of their calves, and they're always doing, trying to go super heavy on their calves. And eventually, keep doing that long enough, you're going to end up with an Achilles rupture, right? Those muscles aren't designed for power. They're designed for endurance. So your chest, your back, your legs, your thigh, your hamstrings, your quads, your glutes, those are power muscles. Our hip flexors, that's the muscles that we use to produce force and power. Pretty much everything else, including your core. Your core is an endurance muscle. All right, so I hope that answers the question. All right, got another question. Great question. This come from my boy Ahmad, man. We go way back, man. So the question is, when a woman wants to lose weight, do you put her in a caloric deficit while trying to build muscle? Man, so that's a great question. That is a great question. And I'm gonna answer it like this. It depends. I could see it happening, and this is all right. So, all right, let me give you an example of how to make this work aligned with the question. So, if I wanted to put you in a caloric deficit to build and still build muscle, we're going to modify her nutrition specifically, right? So, because what we would do in order to build that muscle, obviously we're going to increase the protein intake, right? Even though she's eating less calories, but we're still trying to focus on building muscle. And so that's what you would do, because ultimately the priority goal in this situation is the weight loss. The weight loss takes priority over the building of the muscle, right? So you would still decrease her calories, and because she's already in a deficit, you would just structure her macro breakdown differently, right? So if you now I guess I'll go into this a little bit. I'm not a huge like, hey, 50% of your calories need to be protein. I believe that that's overkill, right? But I would recommend for someone who is trying to lose weight and who's already in a caloric deficit, that half to 3/4 of her nutrition in her plate each meal needs to be vegetables, and then the rest of it is protein. I'm not saying that that we're doing keto either. Carbs could still have to be consumed, especially depending on the style of training that she's engaged in, right? So, and if she's training with you, Maud, I know she's doing kind of that intense strength training. So yeah, she would definitely still need to consume carbs. I would consider doing carb cycling. Now, for those who don't know what carb cycling is, I'm not a huge fan of keto like that. So for anyone who ever comes to me and they're considering doing keto, I always recommend carb cycling. So carb cycling is basically like, hey, you have 1 day of the week or 2 days of the week where you're doing carb loading, right? Basically, you're consuming a generous amount of carbohydrates, and then for like 2 or 3 days following that high intake of carbohydrates, you're having very minimal carbs, right? And so this is basically providing your body with the adequate resource for carbohydrates, which is your main energy source. But then it's helping you utilize and deplete all of your carb storage, so that you're not having excess carbs left over for storage. So that would probably be what I will focus on, Maud, as far as like that calorie deficit, and then just adjusting her protein intake so that way her muscles are getting what they need. And then if you do the carb cycling, make sure you structure the workouts around the high carb intake days, because you need carbs and protein for your body, for your muscles to recover from workout. So, and to build properly, right? Because they're not going to build without the resources and the nutrients that the carbohydrates provide. So, Um, so yeah. Sorry, I went to go see if there was any other questions. You got another question? Boom, boom, boom. All right. Oh, so this kind of goes hand in hand. What are the roles of carbohydrates play in weight loss? What role does carbohydrates play in weight loss? So, all right. So carbohydrates in general, they are our energy source. That is the first line of energy that our body utilizes for activity, right? So just to break carbs down for you, carbs are stored in our blood, our muscles, and our liver. All right, blood, muscles, and liver, and that is the way that our body utilizes that system, right? So when it comes down to activity, or first off, let me back it up a little bit. Our brain runs off of somewhere between 110 to 150 grams of carbs per day alone by itself, just our brain. So at minimum, most people need to be consuming at least 110 grams of carbs per day just to have clarity of the mind. Your brain is utilizing most often carbs that are stored in our bloodstream. Okay. So bug in here. We got a garden in here, so we got bugs. So hey, whatever. But anyway, so after all the carbs are depleted in your bloodstream, then your body will start tapping into the carbohydrates that are stored in the muscle. Hence why I was just telling Maud that you want to make sure that the workouts, the more intense workouts, are structured around the carb loading days, because your muscles store carbohydrates for physical activity. Right? So once your body depletes that, then your body starts to utilize the carbohydrates. It's glucose that carbohydrates turns into glucose that's stored in your liver. Okay. At that point, once you depleted the storage of the carbohydrates in your liver, that is when your body will start going to the carbohydrates or to the fat storage that you have stored in your body. So when people always talk about, like, fat burning, exercise and all those different things, the thing about that is if you've had a decent meal within an hour or two before engaging in exercise, it takes our bodies about 1 hour to deplete all of the energy storage that's in our blood, muscles, and liver. So that means you have to work out for an hour to deplete the energy storage that you already have reserved before you even start tapping into the fat. Does that make sense? So when people talk about fat burning, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to do, I'm doing fat burning, cardio, walking on the treadmill on the incline, unless you are walking for 2 hours, because that first hour you're working off carbs. You're working off carbs in your blood, your muscles, and your liver. Boom. Now you're finally tapping into the fat that's in the storage. The fat that's stored in your midsection, the fat that's stored in your arms or in your thighs or in your back, or whatever the fat is that you're trying to get rid of. Okay. So that's the utilization of how carbs energizes. Now, when it comes down to what it plays in weight loss, that's where we start getting more specific into the details of the type of carbs. I'm not trying to bore anyone with this, but I could talk about all this for a long time. Carbohydrates have a lot of different forms. The two main forms are simple carbs and complex carbs. All right. Simple and complex. Our simple carbs are things like, table sugar, right? So anything, cookies, candy, are all simple carbs, things that are kind of our junk food items. Our complex carbs are going to be the things like, our fruits, our vegetables, your whole grain, whole wheat, oatmeal, that type stuff. Those are your complex carbs. Complex carbs, in a nutshell, are going to provide you with a lot more fiber. Fiber is what is probably the secret ingredient to all health issues. From research, all the research that I've been reading and doing, man, fiber will help with your A1C as it relates to pre-diabetes and diabetes. Fiber will help with blood pressure. Fiber will help with cholesterol, right? Fiber is probably one of the biggest, hidden secrets. But to answer your question, so you want to make sure you're consuming complex carbs, especially if you're trying to, if you're focusing on weight management, weight loss. You want to make sure a majority, if not all of your carbs are complex carbs. And you want to either remove or eliminate the simple carbs from your diet. Simple carbs does include white rice, right? So you're going to have to make a change from white rice to brown rice or to quinoa, right? It does include white bread. Anything where the fiber and the B vitamins and the iron have been removed, which is a lot of like our simple carbs. You're going to want to make that change to where you're eliminating or limiting those carbohydrates as much as possible, and then you are focusing on only complex carbs. Trying to get as many complex carbs as possible when it comes to your carb intake. And that's going to help with your weight management. Because going back to that example or that explanation of the blood, muscles, and liver, your blood, muscles, and liver only store complex carbs. So if you're consuming, so the perfect example is Gatorade. If you've ever seen a Gatorade commercial, right? Gatorade, if you actually watch the commercial, these athletes they sweating, they working, they've depleted their energy stores. And so the only time a simple carb is useful is at that point when your energy levels, your carbohydrates are very low in your system, so they need a very quick solution, which is a Gatorade, because it can process that carb very quickly, right? And turn it into energy so that you can continue to function at a high level. So when you look at that, you want to make sure that you're first consuming complex carbs, right? And then the only time you're utilizing those simple carbs are, for the purpose of recovery or something of that nature. And I'll tell you, like, I've always encouraged, because I'm not like, hey, you can't, I've never been the trainer or the guy to tell you that you can't eat something or you can't consume something or have this or that. But I've always been the guy to tell you, like, hey, we want to make sure we're making this stuff work for us versus making it work against us. So prime example would be, hey, you've been craving a Snickers, right? I've been craving a Snickers bar. Well, if you just been chilling, hanging out, doing nothing all day, eating a Snickers bar is not going to benefit you, right? It's just going to make your insulin rise. It's going to make your blood sugar rise. It's not going to be a benefit. But if you go work out for 30, 45 minutes, you know what I mean? You have a good, decent, workout. You deplete a good amount of your energy stores and your, and all that stuff. Well, once you consume that, if you depleted a majority of your energy stores, when you consume that Snickers, your body's going to find a way to utilize that to help you recover and to replenish those energy stores. Versus if you haven't been doing anything, you haven't burnt off any carbs in your blood, your muscles, or your liver, you eat a Snickers, well, your body has no choice but to either get rid of it or to store it as fat. So hope that makes sense in that instance. All right, why would someone cut carbs? Great question. A lot of people end up cutting carbs because, all right, let me answer it this way. A lot of people cut carbs for the wrong reasons, right? Some people cut carbs because they feel like it's the thing that it's their personal like problem or issue. Like I just can't get enough. I can't stop eating chips. I can't stop eating breads. I can't stop eating pasta. And so people cut carbs for those reasons. Now, why should someone intentionally cut carbs? Like recommend, like what's a reason we would recommend for someone to cut carbs? Well, just for background knowledge, right? Keto was created for people with epilepsy, right? They found out carbohydrates were linked to their episodes with the seizures that they would have. So they decreased. That's why they cut carbs out of that diet, right? In reference to anyone else, I would not recommend cutting carbs for any athlete unless they are in like an ultra endurance athlete. But most often ultra endurance athletes don't have a lot of fat storage. So dang, I lied to you on that. Ultra endurance athletes don't have a lot of fat storage, so they can't cut carbs either. So ultimately, when we look at cutting carbs, I don't know. I wouldn't cut carbs. I would minimize them, or I would carb cycle, but depending on what their lifestyle is, the minimum I would recommend is that 110 to 150 grams of carbs that they need just to for their brain to function. Because if we're talking about a matter of someone just not having self-control, right? Like they can't.
It was a figure of speech.
What?
And what Ahmad said. He was like, "Oh, why would anybody cut carbs?" So I just read.
Oh, my bad. Oh, I'm answering. Oh, my bad. Ebony just. All right, my bad, bro. But anyway, yeah. So why would someone cut carbs? Yeah, I don't know. They shouldn't. Ultimately, but yeah, you shouldn't cut them. But again, I think that's from an aspect of the health and fitness industry. We one thing you'll notice with health and fitness is it comes in cycles, man. Today strawberries might kill you. Tomorrow strawberries is the number one thing that you need to have in your diet, right? So we've demonized carbs due to the lack of understanding, right? Because, all right, I'm gonna just tell y'all. All right, so when we really look at when you really do the research and you start to look at like the core morbidities in the U.S., right? So that's all of our health issues concerning exercise, diet, lifestyle, right? So all the things that come along with it. So the high cholesterol, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, everything. When you look at it, and you really start to research all this stuff, it is not because of carbs alone. One thing that if you look at how over the years, if I pulled up the maps over the years of the United States of how obesity has increased over the years, how diabetes has increased, how cancer has increased over the years, right? You would see like every year, every couple of years, it's getting a lot worse throughout this entire country. And they're making it to seem like carbs are the culprit. Like, yo, you got to control your carbs. Can't eat this other stuff. But if you also look at the health and fitness industry over the years, the increase in recommendation of protein, consuming more and more protein also follows that same trend. So as we started consuming more protein, we started having higher rates of obesity, cancer, diabetes. Why? Because with protein, with increased protein intake comes higher saturated fat intake. And saturated fat also creates issues within your system and how your body responds hormonally, and your insulin and all these different things that have the similar effect that carbohydrates do. So it's not just carbs by themselves. Like, you shouldn't be eating so much protein. You shouldn't be eating so much saturated fat, right? So it's more to it than just than that, but it's just how we choose as a, you know, as an industry to highlight things and push things. So we think carbs are bad, but carbs really aren't. All right. All right, can we talk about pre-workout drinks and food? Yeah, I can talk about it. So we can talk about specifically like pre-workout drinks, or we can specifically, or we can, you know, talk about energy drinks, in both, and how they impact us, right? So the thing is, when it comes down to the caffeine aspect of our daily intake, the concern becomes, and this is a huge thing, especially when it comes down to the military. Again, that's who I work with a majority of the time, right? The biggest concern we start to close in on is what we call wow, I just drew a blank on it. Something fatigue. It's a fatigue. Doom, doom, doom. All right, so I can't think of it right now. But anyway, it's a fatigue that sets in because our adrenal fatigue. Our adrenaline glands are overworked or overstimulated, right? Because we're continuously drinking caffeine and trying to produce adrenaline, so to speak, to stay awake, to stay energized. And so that's one of the big issues with drinking too much coffee, drinking too many pre-workouts, drinking too many energy drinks. All those things, adrenal fatigue starts to take place and settle in. All right, and so when adrenal fatigue starts to take place, that disrupts a lot of different things in our. Remember that homeostasis? I don't know if you were tuned in when I was talking about homeostasis earlier in the live stream, but homeostasis is our ability for our bodies to return to balance, right? Hormonal balance, nutrient balance, temperature regulation, so on and so forth. So pre-workout and a lot of different other supplements can disrupt our ability for our bodies to return to balance, right? Because this is what I was talking about when we were talking a couple weeks ago. But so my thing with supplementation, right? Whether it is, you know, a nutrient or caffeine or anything of that nature, what it does is it inhibits the ability for our bodies to do that normal process on its own, especially if we're taking these supplements on such a regular basis that our bodies no longer have to facilitate that process, right? If you've ever heard if you ever heard like reviews or anything from like men back in the day when taking testosterone boosters were real popular, and then the outcome of that, well, yeah, since you were supplementing with that testosterone booster, your body stopped producing testosterone on its own because it had a different source, right? So the same thing kind of happens when we're taking too many energy drinks and things of that nature, right? That adrenal fatigue starts to settle in to where you're always feeling exhausted. You always need a pick me up because your body is reliant basically on that something. It's like an addiction. It's like a drug, right? And that's the same thing where people talk about like their when they don't have coffee for a couple of days and they kind of start having those headaches and all those different things. So when it comes down to your pre-workouts or any supplementation and all those different things, the first thing I would recommend before doing anything of that nature is getting your blood work done. Excuse me, getting your blood work done, because if what you will find in your blood work will give you more answers than what you're feeling, right? If you're always feeling tired, kind of fatigue and something like that, and you're like, well, so I need to drink more, I need some coffee, or I need an energy drink, or whatever the case may be, so I can stay awake and stay alert. Well, what we might find in your blood work is that you're deficient in vitamin D, right? And what you might find out with a vitamin D deficiency is that your magnesium levels are low, right? So it sometimes it's more to the story than, you're just tired, right? Or you're just fatigued, and we start supplementing versus actually getting to the root. Because again, sometimes with pre-workouts and certain supplements and stuff, we're treating a symptom, but we're not getting to the root. We're not figuring out what's actually the issue here, and if we don't do that, that issue is going to continue. And so that's the frustration that comes with trying to figure that stuff out. Because even with food, right? You can there's certain foods that you can consume that you don't need to buy supplements for. And so my biggest thing, I used to be a creatine guy, and if you eat red meat once a week, that'll fulfill, because your body already produces 70% of the creatine you need, right? So eating red meat once a week, it takes your body about 4 days to process red meat, to completely get it out of your system. So there wouldn't be no need for you to take a creatine supplement. I hope that answered that question, Janae. So now, as far as a pre-workout goes, I recommend more of a natural pre-workout, banana, right? A banana has, even though banana is a complex carb, it takes on the effect of a simple carb, meaning that your body processes it very quickly, and it kind of gives you an energy boost within a 20-minute period of consuming it, similar to like if you ate candy or were to take some pre-workout. And so sometimes that might be enough of a kick up to get you getting active and engaging into getting your workout started without actually taking a pre-workout supplement or anything like that. So like a banana and peanut butter is always good. Now, as it relates to working out and nutrition in general, couple of rule of thumbs. All right, the most important the most important meal of the day is your post-workout meal, right? And that's all based on what I was discussing as far as like, hey, if we deplete all of our energy stores, right? Well, we want to replenish those energy stores. We don't want to work out for an hour or 30 minutes, hour, or even 2 hours, depending on who you are. Right? We don't want to work out that long and then not consume anything for an extended period after that, because what's going to happen then is your cortisol levels, the stress in your body is going to start to increase, right? And so now that's going to bring more tension and more discomfort, and it's going to make it more difficult for your body to recover from your workouts, right? So you want to ensure that you're consuming something within 90 minutes of completing your workout, all right? Usually the recommendation for that is 60 grams of carbs and 20 grams of protein. All right. So after following a workout, where, and we're talking about intense quality, high quality, effective workout. So that would mean like, hey, if you went to do Pilates or yoga, we you know what I mean? We're not doing that. But any of these, CrossFit, yada, yada, you want to consume 60 grams of carbohydrates and 20 grams of protein post-workout within 90 minutes. Within 90 minutes of completing that workout, all right? So that way your body could recover and process everything properly and and you don't have too much stress built up in your system. Another thing to always be mindful of when it comes to working out is your post-workout stretching. All right. You have to stretch after a workout. You don't want to be going through intensity of exercise and then just finish the workout, hop in the car, and go on about your day. What happens when you're exercising is your body and your blood is transporting nutrients for muscles to contract, to be able to contract. So it's a whole process in order for a muscle to flex and relax and all that stuff. It's a chemistry, nutrient reaction that happens in the muscle a chemical reaction that happens in order for you to perform exercise. So those nutrients, in order to conduct that, have to be transported to the muscle. If you just, all right, finish my last set, hop in the car and go home, your body is still transporting those nutrients, right? So your body never got the signal to, okay, hey, let me go ahead and relax and stop the transportation of these nutrients and stop bringing blood flow to those muscles, right? So that the muscle can start to relax and recover. So if you've ever done a workout and you hopped in the car and you went on about your day, and later on, like your back was tight, your legs are tight, and that muscle group that you were focused on just was really tight and tense, it's because you didn't stretch to signal your body like, hey, okay, we no longer need that transportation of nutrients. We can go ahead and start the relaxation process so that so that your body can recover and heal properly. So you definitely want to make sure whatever exercises and muscle groups that you engage during exercise, make sure you take at least 5 to 10 minutes after to do some static stretching. If you're not familiar with static stretching is what we did in middle school PE, right? The stretches that we hold. I'm going to hold it for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, right? I'm going to reach down, touch my toes, and hold for 20 seconds. That's a static stretch. A dynamic stretch is a stretch that we do with movement, right? Anything where, hey, I'm going through full range of motion, but I'm going through movement. I'm not just sitting there holding as I stretch. So, I hope that answered your question, Janae. 60 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein. We got any other questions? I could talk about this stuff all day. It's already been 2 hours and it don't even feel like it's been 2 hours. All right, so I'm gonna go over a couple of other things I feel are common, I guess. I think I hear my wife coming. Maybe not. Okay. Oh, my bad. Did I go? All right. So, my bad, y'all. I was going to jump in to the comments. All right. So, hope this been useful. But so a couple of other things that I feel are pretty common when it comes down to all of this health and fitness stuff. So the other thing I think a lot of people make the mistake of is trying to adhere to standards when it comes down to working out. Again, so this kind of taps back into what I was saying earlier about, like, don't start off with trying to work out 4 days a week and all this other stuff. I always use the example of don't try and work out like The Rock, right? Because you feel like that's the standard to say that you're being fit or that you're accomplishing a fitness goal or something of that nature. No, but start where you are. Start where you are, because you can't work out like The Rock. You can't work out like me, and I can't work out like you. But you need to start. You need to start where you are. Oh, did I answer? Hey, Ebony, can you come here? My fault, y'all. Give me another question.
Give you another question.
All right. My wife told me I should wrap it up. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for it. If y'all ain't got no other questions, I'm gonna wrap it up, because I ain't got none. I feel like I'm gonna just be repeating myself on certain things. But yeah, I hope this was useful. And then yeah, maybe I'll do something like this more often and go in deeper detail on certain topics. I tried to keep it more general for now, and not as specific as, as I could go. But yeah, if y'all do have questions in the future, let me know. If you need resources of any type, workouts, or just information, let me know. I have a lot of resources and concerns to details when it comes to like your carbs, protein, and fats. What are good, bad, and necessary. Also, got a lot of details when it comes down to like meal timing. So the appropriate meal timing as far as what you need to, when you should eat before a workout, after a workout, during a workout, all those different things. So, yeah, just let me know what you need, and then I'm, like I said, I'm willing to share it. So, and then another thing to keep in mind, I'm not the only trainer, and I'm not selfish in that way. Like like my boy Ahmad, he's been on here. I think I saw, why am I drawing a blank? Renisha, I think she's training too. Like, so, and I have, it's other trainers, Chardon Cherry, my boy Ori. So it's a lot of people I could recommend to you for whether it's for online training, in-person training, if you're not interested in training with me. But either way, I'll lead you to what you need. So anyway, but I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone that tuned in, that provided some questions and stuff. And again, like I said, I hope this was useful, and maybe I'll do it again soon. So take care. Have a blessed night. And yeah, remember, you owe it to yourself. I'm out. Ugh.